The Struggling Family Under the Tamarind Tree. The first sign came quietly. The wind changed. Instead of carrying the smell of wet earth, it carried dust. The clouds thinned until they looked like torn cloth floating across the sky. Mama Nambi felt the change deep in her bones. She had lived long enough to know that when the sky closed its eyes, rain would not come easily. In the village of Boyale, daily life continued, but worry grew beneath every conversation. Farmers stared at the pale sky. Hunters returned empty-handed. Children fetched water from a river that shrank each sunrise. Mama Nambi watched her 4 children struggle through each day, doing their best to hide their fear. She prayed quietly each evening for rain, but the heavens remained silent. Soon the gardens around the village turned yellow, leaves curled, stalks bent. The riverbed cracked like broken pottery. Animals grew restless and wandered into the wild. Every family felt the drought tightening around them like a rope. Mama Nambi's family felt it hardest. They had no livestock left, no large garden, no store of grain, just a tiny hut and each other. Yet, even as hunger slithered into their lives, they kept hoping tomorrow would be kinder. Every day had become a test of strength. Sente, though only 13, walked before sunrise to fetch water from a well 3 hills away. Each trip took hours, and every step drained him. Sometimes, halfway home, he would stop to catch his breath, gripping the clay pot on his back as dizziness swirled around him. Lolly gathered firewood barefoot in the thinning forest. The once cool soil had turned hot enough to sting her feet. Still, she walked deeper into the bush than anyone else dared, returning with bundles heavier than expected. At night, she rubbed oil on her bruised feet and said nothing about the pain. Tito and Mira, the youngest, crawled through berry bushes searching for anything edible. Thorns scraped their arms, but they kept looking, refusing to return home empty-handed. Their eyes grew hollow, their laughter rare. Mama Nambi carried her own burden. Every night she ground the last handful of maize, praying the sound would comfort her children. When she divided the porridge into tiny portions, she pretended not to be hungry. But the truth was, she often went to sleep without a single spoonful. By the 3rd month of drought, the family was surviving on courage alone. One evening, a fierce wind swept through the village, blowing sand, leaves, and tears across the homestead. When the dust settled, the village was darker and quieter than before. Even the frogs had gone silent. That night, Sente fainted while carrying water. Lolly's hands shook uncontrollably after a long day under the unforgiving sun. Tito and Mira cried themselves to sleep, too hungry to pretend any more. Mama Nambi sat beneath the tamarind tree, staring into the darkness, her faith wavering for the first time in her life. The sky looked empty, like a ceiling without gods. She whispered, "Have the ancestors forgotten us?" For the first time, she imagined a future where her children would not survive the season. That thought crushed her. She covered her face and sobbed silently so her children would not hear. But the tamarind tree stood tall above her, its old roots gripping the earth as if holding on for both of them. Before the sun rose the next morning, Sente awoke early from hunger and stepped outside to breathe the cool air. As he sat beneath the tamarind tree, he heard a faint drip, drip, drip. At first he thought his tired mind was playing tricks, but then he heard it again. He knelt, brushed away dry leaves, and felt damp soil beneath his fingers. His heart pounded. He dug with his hands, deeper, faster, until the earth burst open and clear, cold water bubbled through the ground. Sente gasped and shouted, "Mama, water, water!" Mama Nambi ran out, thinking a snake had attacked him. When she saw the tiny spring glistening beneath the roots, she fell to her knees. Tears streamed down her face, not from fear, but from overwhelming relief. The children gathered around the spring, splashing water on their faces, laughing for the first time in months. They touched the ground as if touching a blessing. The ancestors had not abandoned them. The land had not forgotten them. The tamarind tree had chosen to speak. Life began to change slowly but surely. Sente started clearing a new garden with renewed strength. Though thin and weak, he pushed himself with a determination deeper than hunger. Lolly planted the seeds she had hidden for months: beans, pumpkins, and a few grains of maize. The soil absorbed the spring water greedily, turning soft and dark once more. Tito and Mira learned to set traps using vines and sticks. Soon they caught rabbits, which Mama Nambi cooked into thick stew. For the first time in a long while, the homestead smelled like food. Neighbors noticed the change and visited with empty gourds, seeking water. Some whispered that the spring was sacred. Others believed the ancestors had chosen Mama Nambi's family for a purpose. At night, the family sat under the tamarind tree, telling stories again, this time with smiles instead of tears. The land was waking up, and so were they. Weeks passed, and the garden flourished. Beans climbed tall sticks, pumpkin vines curled across the soil. Maize stalks rose confidently, shaking in the breeze. Birds returned to the tamarind tree and filled the homestead with song. The spring grew stronger each day. Water flowed freely, cool and clear, never stopping for even an hour. Mama Nambi began washing clothes again. The children returned to playing and laughing. Each child grew into a new version of themselves. Sente, protector of the spring, strong despite his hardships. Lolly, caretaker of the garden, skilled with soil and seed. Tito and Mira, herb learners, small healers in the making. Mama Nambi, the heart of the home, reborn in strength. Their homestead changed from a place of suffering into a place of hope. Word of the spring spread everywhere. Elders from neighboring villages came to see it. Children fetched water from it. Women blessed it. Men spoke of it with pride. Some called it a miracle. Others believed it was a gift from forgotten ancestors. Eventually, the villagers gathered around the tamarind tree and named it Omusita Ogwa Bulamu, the Tree of Life. Under its branches, the family thrived. They shared water with those in need, helped neighbors replant their gardens, and rebuilt the village's strength. Their story traveled far, told around fires, whispered in neighboring villages, and passed to new generations. They had survived the drought not because they were the strongest, but because they never gave up on each other. And the tamarind tree that once stood silently now stood as a symbol of rebirth, resilience, and the power of family.